A very good evening, everyone. Myself, Shauradip Odhikari. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to today's enlightening webinar, Dancing Through Time, mapping the terracotta legacy of Bishnupur and its resonance in Gauriya Nritya at Shamrai Temple, organized by Modak Trainer Academy. Today, we are truly honored to have with us an eminent personality, respected Monikiran Dattagupta, a dedicated scholar and an accomplished performer of Gauriya Nritya. She is currently a research scholar in the Department of Geography at Lovely Professional University, Punjab. Along with her academic pursuits, she has been dedicated to classical dance and music from a very young age. A disciple of the eminent, renowned Professor Dr. Mohua Mukherjee, Ms. Dattagupta has been performing and researching Gauriya Nritya since 2005. Her remarkable achievements include receiving the Senior National Scholarship from the Ministry of Culture, Government of India, and being recognized as a Grade A artist by Pratibha Chayan EZCC. She has performed at various prestigious platforms like Doverland Music Conference, ISKCON Rath Yatra, Presidency University, and a lot of other renowned institutions and platforms. With her deep knowledge and artistic brilliance, Ms. Dattagupta has been consistently working on exploring the interrelation between terracotta dancing sculptures and the dynamic tradition of Gauriya Nritya. This evening, we are really fortunate to hear her insights and witness the magic of cultural resonance through her beautiful presentation. So, without any further delay, let us welcome our today's honorable respected speaker, Ms. Monikiran Dattagupta, and immerse ourselves in this journey of history, art, and dance. Thank you all.
Am I audible? Hello, am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
are.
Yeah, thank you, sir. The pleasure is all mine. Uh, Good evening, everyone. Uh, Today, I'm going to present before you my IKS research internship topic, that is Dancing Through the Time, Mapping the Terracotta Legacy of Bishnupur and the Living Dialogues Between Shamrai Temple and Gauriya Nritya. And my guru, Dr. Mohua Mukherjee, has been supervising me throughout my whole life, I must say. But also in this research work, I wouldn't have been able to complete this without her because, as I said, I'm a student of geography and I haven't studied dance academically. So whatever I have made, whatever I have prepared, whatever I have analyzed is all because of her, and she helped me throughout the process. So I would, can you please change the slide and present the slide? Yeah. Next. Yeah. So Bengal has long been a land of rich artistic and devotional expression where dance and music are woven into its cultural fabric. Ancient texts like the Natya Shastra, Rastarangini, Charyapad have always led us to the experience that dance was not foreign to our lands, and we were very culturally enriched uh, historically and throughout the time. It went on, it's still on. So the objectives of my study were to conduct a cultural mapping of the terracotta temples of Bishnupur by identifying, locating, and categorizing them based on architectural styles such as the Pancharatna, Ikratna, Dochala, Rekha Deul, using visual markers and satellite mapping techniques. To examine the terracotta narratives of the Pancharatna Shamrai temple for representations of movement, posture, and rhythm, and to explore how these static sculptural forms translate into the dynamic movements of Gaudiya Nritya, tracing continuity from temple walls to performance. The methodology of my study was the pre-field, field, and post-field. In the pre-field, we did some background study and selected the topic. And I chose Vishnupur and especially Shamrai Temple because Shamrai Temple is one of the very intricate worked temple that are still existent, because other than that all the other temples have been quite weathered out. Only sculptures in Shamrai and Jorbangla are very prominent. So Shamrai is a very good example to study. And also I would like to thank Mr. Shubhu Mojumdar from Archaeological Survey of India, who helped me to get the permission to get on the temple and study and take the photographs. Otherwise it wouldn't have been possible. Now they don't allow anyone to get on the temple, which is for good actually, because if human keeps on getting in the temple and touching the sculptures, it's already weathered and it gets weathered faster. So this is my topic selection went this way. I chose this temple because it's the most intricate work temple in this whole terracotta temple section. And then I mapped the study area, followed some work plan. As I'm a student of geography, without a map, I am blind. So I had to map it. And then I did some literature review and some reference work. Then we went for the field work where we did documentation of all the terracotta plaques in the temple in the first floor. Second floor we couldn't access, and we interviewed the locals and the terracotta artisans of Panchmura village to understand more about the terracotta art. And then I came to the post field phase where I consulted Dr. Moha Mukherjee and few other scholars of Gaudiya Nritya who have actually done their PhD in this topic, and also did the cultural mapping of these temples, which has never been done almost. I never found a cultural map of these temples, or even temples to say, in West Bengal. And then analysis of the photo samples from the field work and trying to relate them to my dance form was a huge part of the post-field stage. And then I did the final data analysis and report writing. So this is my study area. Can you please change the topic? I have done this. Next. Yeah. So this is my study area. So my study area, as I said, focuses on Vishnupur and Shamrai temple, which was built in 1643 by the Malla dynasty. And it is the Malla kings are responsible for erecting all the terracotta temples mostly in that area. And they were very influenced by Vaishnavism. Next. So the terracotta temples of Bishnupur have a very salient feature, that is the terracotta means cooked earth. So this terracotta is, these plaques are made, the sculptural plaques are made separately and they are put on the temple walls. So this is how it is made, and it has a very huge history that the Sumerians used it. The Indus Valley civilization also had terracotta artifacts and potteries, and then the Greeks also had terracotta. And then according to Professor Moha Mukherjee, terracotta sculptures in Bengal can be divided into three major sections. So one is the 4th century BC to 2nd century CE, that is the Maurya Sunga Kushana period. And then comes the 9th to 11th century CE, the Pala period, which is also the golden period of Bengal. And the 6th century to 18th century C, that is the post Chaitanya era, where these sculptures were influenced by the Vaishnavism, the Bhakti movement, and so on. So, home to 20 major temples, earliest being the Minmay temple. Mostly these temples were built between 1622 to 1758. And most of them reflect Gaudiya Vaishnav tradition, although in these temples you can also find sculptures of Shaivite sects and also Shakti sects like Dasha Mahavidya. You can also find Dasha Mahavidya in these temples, in Shamrai temple itself. And it's not really bound to just Gaudiya Vaishnavism. It also reflects some social life. It also reflects some mythology like Ramayana, Mahabharata, scenes from Ramayana, Mahabharata. Also some sections of Dasha Mahavidya, of people offering their devotion to God. This kind of plaques are seen. Next. So I visited the Panchmura village, where I was very lucky to interview Mr. Bhutnath Kumbhakar. He is one of the most famous artist there, and his whole family has won the got Rashtrapati Puruskar, and his wife, and he's hereditarily he's into terracotta art form, and he explained how terracotta art is made. The clay is sourced from the village itself. This is the reason why this place predominantly show terracotta temples, because the raw materials were available there only. That is why. And clay is sourced from Panchmura village, mixed with fine sand and strained. These are molded, shadow dried first, and then dried in the sun. And then it's baked in the fire for like 6 to 7 hours, traditionally in a kiln. And then this is finished with a natural glaze sometimes, or sometimes these more modern methods of coatings are used, which are way more polished and look very metallic in nature. Next. So the structural design of these terracotta temples vary. So these can be differentiated into a few types. Some of them are the Deul, which is a very common type of architecture that we see. It has pyramidal roofs, and there are types like Rekha Deul, Pira Deul, Begunia Deul. And then the next type is the Chala, where we see the normal hut we see in Bengal. That is the roof is thatched like this. That is the Chala. And this Chala can be do Chala like two portions, and then it can be Char Chala, and then it can be Art Chala, and then it can be Baro Chala. And then we see what we know as Bangla Mundi, that is Ek Bangla and Jor Bangla. So the Jor Bangla temple is a example of that. And we see Ratna Mandir. Ratna Mandir is, they have turrets. The curved top of a temple is summoned by turrets or pinnacles, and each one is called a Ratna or a jewel. So the simplest being Ek Ratna, which has only one turret, and this can multiply to Pancharatna, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and one in the middle, Pancharatna, and can be Navaratna, can be Ekadash Ratna, 9, 11, and Panchabhimshati Ratna, 25, you can see. So this depends on the ruler and the way they pay their devotion to the gods and all. So back then, the more flourished a temple is, or the more flourished a kingdom is, would reflect right on the quality or the architecture of the temple. So that's how you understand also. It was a way of flaunting also. You could understand from the thing. And then we have Dalan. Dalan is Indo-Islamic architecture, and what we see in North Kolkata houses, Thakur Dalan, which is a place in the middle of the house, a courtyard kind of a place. So that's also common. Next. So this is a list of all the temples that I could get, and I have visited most of them, and I have dated them, and according to their in ascending order, and I have written that the style they are, and their building materials. So as we see, Pancharatna Shamrai Temple is one of the foremost and one of the most important one. Next being Jor Bangla. Rashmoncho is also another structure which the poster portrayed. So that's the Rashmoncho. It doesn't have any sculptural figures on it. It is a huge flat area with pillars in it. And then comes Madan Mohan Temple, Lalji Temple. These are all more weathered temples in relationship to Pancharatna and Jor Bangla. These are quite weathered. Next. So here is a map where I showed the location of all the temples that I mentioned in my earlier table, and I have categorized them and showed them in the Pancharatna temple, the Ekratna, Dochala, Ekchala. I have showed with my indexing which one is which, and I have mapped this. And I would say mapping these temples are very important because suppose a tourist comes from outside who has interest in all these, he or she wouldn't find a map which shows all the temples are what it is. It is very odd, but we really don't have that much of developed cultural mapping in our country, where we show our architecture or we show our culture to visually. So this is very important as per me. Being a geographer, I felt the need to do this. Next. So this is the details of Pancharatna Shamrai Temple. As you can see, this is a very unique lake in the right side. It's called the Rash Mandal, and this panel shows Sri Krishna dancing in between and in the center, and gopis dancing in circles around him. So this is a very important sculpture in the Shamrai temple, and the one below shows scenes from Ramayana. It is a gateway which shows scenes of Ramayana carved. And this Pancharatna Shamrai temple was built by King Raghunath Singh of the Malya dynasty during the height of Vishnupur's temple architecture, dedicated to Radha Krishna, embodying the ideals of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Built in Pancharatna style with one large octagonal turret at the center and four smaller turrets at each corner. Constructed with terracotta on a laterite base, known for its durability and intricate surface details. This is based on a square layout featuring the three arched doorways or on four sides, and creates a symmetrical spatial flow. Terracotta panels depict scenes from Ramayana, Mahabharata, Krishna Lila, and aspects of everyday life. Like I said, most notable is the Rasa Mandala panel, which I have shown you, showing Krishna surrounded by gopis in concentric circles, visually echoing Bengali Alpona art. Bengali Alpona also follows a very circular pattern. It grows from center to outward, and similarly, this Rashamandal also follows that pattern. Next. So I would move on to give a small description of what Gaudiya Nritya is. Gaudiya Nritya is a classical dance form indigenous to Greater Bengal, including parts of West Bengal, Bihar, Jharkhand, Orissa, Assam, and Bangladesh, which we used to call the Greater Bengal earlier. So the term Gaudiya comes from Gaud, the ancient capital of King Shashanka. And this Gaud word comes from the word gur. We were famous for making gur, that is jaggery or molasses, and Bengal was very famous for that. So it gets its name from that, because we were, I think, the major exporters of gur. So in its roots track back to 13th century, but from decline, this declines during the Turkish invasion, and later on, under the colonial suppression, this dance form got extinct. So I have given a visual representation of how Gaudiya flew through time and what it is now. So from 13th century, it declined during the Turkish invasion, and again during the period of Sri Chaitanya Deva, it revived to some extent, and then during the colonial rule also it got extinct. And then now with Dr. Mohua Mukherjee and we, her disciples, we are trying to revive this dance form through research and practical restoration. So Dr. Moha Mukherjee does the maximum part of the research with along with the dance reconstruction, and also also Pandit Amitabha Mukherjee, her husband, plays a major role in the musical reconstruction, because without music we couldn't really reconstruct a dance, and so it goes hand in hand. So this is how we are operating now, and we, her students, we are trying our very best to reconstruct, to add in to whatever she has shown us. So next. Next. Yeah. So as I said, revival and reconstruction, I have said this already. So officially this Gauda Nritya was named by Professor Bhatindranath Mukhopadhyay on 21st September 1994. This is practiced in many places in India today, and over 150 national scholarship and fellowship holders are there to support this dance form, and Ministry of Culture also helps us a lot. Next. Yeah. So why do we call Gauda Nritya a classical dance form? Is a big question, and many people have raised it. So as we can see, to call Gauda Nritya a classical dance, we can concentrate on the four pillars of Gauda Nritya. That is history and literature, where reference we can give from Natya Shastra of Bharat Muni and Kama Sutra and Rastarangini, where it shows that dance in Bengal was so important. Like in Rastarangini, it tells that dance in Bengal was so important that Devdashi Kamala used to dance in the Kartik temple, and Raja Joyapir was so mesmerized by her dance form that he came here in Bengal to marry a princess, and he went back to Kashmir after marrying the princess and the Devdashi of the temple. So this is how dance form in Bengal was important, and this is how respected it was. So also the next part we can see Nritya and Shangit Shastra, where in Shangit Ratnakar by Sharangadev, Brihadeshi of Matanga Muni are linked to religious regional ragas like Gaur, Gaur Kaushiki, Gaur Mollar, and so on, which shows that Gaur had another identity, an identity of its own, and its music and its dance form, its culture had another identity, a regional identity that was only based on that particular area, Gaur. And also we can find the architectural and sculptural evidences like in Bishnupur Shamrai temple, and many terracotta sculptures and many other sculptures too. And also we can find in the traces of a lost dance form in the Guru Shishya Parampara, where this folk dance forms or the folk art forms, Baul, Kirtan, Nachni, Chho, carry small legacies or storytellings of these dance forms. And as we all know, many folk dances connect with each other and form one classical dance form. And Gaudiya is nothing beyond that. It also follows the same method. Next. Yeah. So the relationship of Gaudiya Nritya with terracotta temples. As we can see, in the absence of photography, sculpture plays a major role in preserving or in documenting the dance form, the sculpture, the culture, the lifestyle that was there. And so the Bishnupur temple complex, especially the Shamrai temple, preserves details of this dance form. And the narratives and depictions, as I said earlier, were sculptures illustrated in from mostly Krishna Lila episodes of Ramayana, some parts of Shaivism, Shaktism, and everyday life like hunting, hookah, smoking, and war depictions. Rich portrayals of dance postures, musical instruments, and costumed male and female performers offers clue to historical performance traditions. Here you can see during my field survey, this is one of the doorways, as you can see in the picture, and below that you can see a hunter with a bow and arrow, wearing a turban on his head, and there's arrows on his back, and he's just hunting. So we can always find daily life sculptures in the temple, as along with the devotion or the gods and goddesses or the other the Dashavatar and all, Dashamahavidyan, etc. Next. Yeah. So here you can see dancers dancing on the shora. Shora is the earthen pot that we till this day use in Gaudiya Nritya, and we can find clear examples of dancing on the shora in this picture on the left, where the dancers are standing right on the shora, and in the right you see the picture of a Devdasi, and she is worshipping Lord Krishna. Why am I saying she is worshipping? Because you can see the ghat, or the small ghat, the pot in front of her, which shows that they both are not the same thing. This is not Radha and Krishna. This is a worshipper and a god. And see, you can also see a crack in the plate too, because they both are not the same. So this is it. And in this you can see the worshipper, the Devdasi, carrying a chamor in one hand. We use the chamor or the whisk to please or to pray, to pay a tribute to the five elements of nature: Khiti, Apo, Tej, Morubhum, fire, water, earth, space, and wind. And also she has a puja offering in the other hand. So, and see the beautiful flow of the garland, which shows movement. The garland could have been the movement of the kuchi or the kanchi between her legs also you can find, because she is dancing, she was performing. So this motion also is very well portrayed in most of these sculptures. Next. Yeah. So I would go on to more detailed discussion of the small aspects of Gaudiya Nritya, which add up to make the whole dance form, and how we can find it in the present day practice and also the previous sculpture. So we come to sthanakas. As we know, there are four kinds of sthanakas: the sama or the straight sthanaka that I've shown in person there as a Buddha figure, and beside that you can see the same Sama Sthanaka in the portrait with Mushti Hasta like this. And then you can see the Abhanga, or the where there's just slight tilt in the body, and the body is broken down into two. So you can see a slight curve on my waist, showing that Abhanga posture. Next. We can next is Tribhanga Sthanaka. See the Saraswati. As I said, see the pleats of her dresses flowing in the wind. That's what I meant, saying that those sculptures were so intricate that they were quite successful in showing the flow of a person and of a figure. So in this the Saraswati, she has a Tribhangi posture where her neck is tilted, her waist is tilted, and her knee is tilted, showing in a swastika pada. And the next is the Atibhanga posture. You can see the this is the sculpture of someone playing a conch. So here you can see the Atibhanga posture. Next. These are the more detailed parts of the sthanaka, where you can see this Samhata sthanaka, where the thumb is over another thumb of a figure, and then the swastika. There's Vaishnava. Vaishnava sthanaka is very common in sculptures too. And then there's Samasuchi. In this Samasuchi sculpture, you can see a person smoking hookah. So this is not a religious sculpture. This is a day-to-day sculpture where you can see just day-to-day elements in the temple wall. And then you see the Ekpashagata figure of the Saraswati holding Veena, and then the Brahmapada, the Khanda Suchi, the Dadura. I have shown a few of the sthanakas, not all of them. Next. So we come to the Pada Vedas. There are many kinds of Pada Vedas also in Gaudiya Nritya, and some are the most common ones are like Sama And then there's Kunchita Pada. You can see that Saraswati or the someone is playing a flute here. So that is in Kunchita Pada. And then there's another Suchya Pada where you point out the toe. And the archer I showed earlier, he is in a Agraga Pada, 1 foot forward. And then we can come to the hastas. We have two kinds of hastas, that is Nritta Hasta and Nritya Hasta. So, and in Nritya Hasta, we can explain Nritya Hasta by single hand gestures and double hand gestures. Next. So I have shown a few hastas which are there in common day practice, and some from the temple sculpture. So as you can see, Dr. Moha Mukherjee herself is showing the Pataka Hasta, and then Dr. Bonani Chakraborty is showing the Hamsa Paksha Hasta, and then I'm showing the Pushpaputa Hasta, the Suchya Hasta, Mushtika Hasta is being shown. And then in this temple sculpture, you can see the double hand gestures, Pushpaputa Hasta. And then you can see the Anjali Hasta in the sculpture of the Shiva, I think it is like this. So we find many different kinds of hastas in the sculpture, which are till date in practice. And we follow Sri Hasta Mukta Boli by Pundit Shubhankar to analyze and denote all the hastas in Gaura Nritya. Next. So let's move on to the Margam of Gaura Nritya. Every dance form, every classical dance form has a way of presentation. So that way of presentation is known as Margam. So how it starts, when a performer gets on the stage to perform, how she or he approaches the whole show is the Margam. So she will start by Ganesh Vandana or some kind of Vandana or some Pushpanjali, and it would go on. So I will explain it. So in Gaura Nritya, when we do a Vandana Nritya in the beginning, we use the whisk, the chamor, as I said, and the dala, the offering, puja offering, and we mostly dance it on the earthen pot. So now we use fiber pots, but back then I'm sure it was the earthen pots. So we use that and we dance on that because that represents the earth to us. And then we follow series of nritya and nritya postures, and it goes on like that, to where we offer our prayer to the 5 elements, the gods and goddess to whom the vandana is dedicated, and then it goes on. So first we start with the Vandana Nritya, then we go towards Mangala Charan, where it has intricate footworks and mudras, gestures, and dramatic expressions. And mostly it shows it portrays mythological stories like Aghasur Vod or Durga versus Mahishasur, like the driving of good over the evil and all these. So then comes Alapchari. Alapchari is a concoction of Alap and Chari. So where there are parts where where we perform things like to a certain piece, a certain portion of a song, and then there's a prostar or a rhythmic pattern, a structured pattern, like jha khene chere khene jha. This is the rhythmic pattern, and then there comes a song portion which gets repeated after these prostars, and this goes on like 5 times in a cycle, and this is how it proceeds, like the Alapchari. So in Alapchari, in Desh Alapchari, we also perform Rash Nritya at the end of it. So there we sometimes do a Danda Rash. There are some kinds of Rashas. So one is Tal Rash, where we use the claps to do the Rash. And then there's Dondo Rush, where you use sticks to do the rush. And then there's Mondal Rush. Mondal means circle. So it goes on in a circle. So as you can see in this picture, this is a perfect picture of Mondal Rush, where people are holding, like clapping hands like this. So this is an example of Tal Rush and also a Mondal Rush. Next. Yeah. So then we move on to more Abhinaya part. So that is Leela Kirtan, maybe. Leela Kirtan is the Leela of someone, like the story of someone, literally. So it can be on Putana, it can be of Krishna Ram Katha. So it is the Leela of a person that is explained mostly through Abhinaya. There's lesser footworks, but there are more expressive storytellings in a Leela Nritya. So as you can see here in this picture, Dr. Shatabdi Chakraborty is showing the Putana Bad, and she's holding Urnanabha to show the Putana. So then comes Pala Nritya. In Pala Nritya, it's a high energy group performance with aggressive footwork and facial expressions and synchronized formations, which shows Mahishasura Mardini, Kirat Arjun, where a whole group is performing together. Next. So here then comes Mahajanapad Nritya, where you can see there are classical themes of Dashavatara and Naika Bheda. And here are the 10 sculptures that I found of Dashavatara, going from left to right: the Matsya Avatara, Kurma, the Baraha, the Narasimha, the Vaman, the Ram, the Parashuram, the Balaram, the Vishnu on Garuda, and Kalki. So next. So here I have shown the Dashavatara. Only the Vishnu on Garuda part is missing here, because we perform Dashavatara on Jayadev's Gita Govinda. So Jayadev's Gita Govinda, we have Buddha Avatara in his place. So back then in the temple sculptures, Buddha Avatara was missing and Vishnu Avatara was considered. So here I have shown the Matsya Avatara, and then the Kurma Avatara is shown by Dr. Bonani Chakraborty. And then there's Varaha Avatara, Narasimha, Vaman Avatara shown by Dr. Shomu Bhaumik, the Parashuram, the Ram, the Kalki, and the Balaram. The Balaram and the Kalki is shown. Next. And then comes the Antardasha Nritya. Can you switch back to the previous slide, please? Yeah. So we end the performance with Antardasha Nritya, a spiritual finale marked by meditative postures, subtle hand gestures, and symbolic movements representing liberation, the prayer and surrender of movements. So at the end, a dancer surrenders herself or himself to God, or to the ultimate spirit. He reaches the ultimate spiritual destination, which he or she was seeking through dance form. It is believed that way. So Antardasha Nritya marks the end of all performances. Next. Yeah. So this is the musical instruments of ancient Bengal, and musical instruments can be divided into 4 parts majorly, which is the Tat Vadya, that is the string instruments like Iktara, Dotara, Veena, and you can see many sculptures of Saraswati or other females or even males playing Veena in Shamrai temple. And then there's Ghanavadya, which is metal instruments, that is cymbals, kasha, kortal, temple bells, ghanta. These are very common, and you can see in the sculpture below, the person in the right, extreme right among the 3, is playing the kartal with 2 hands. And then comes Sushir Vadya. Sushir means flute. So any kind of wind instruments like flute, conches, shanai can be referred to as Sushir Vadya. And you can see in the bottom figure, right, extreme right, someone is playing a conch. Before that, I have shown you sculptures of Krishna playing the flute and all. So all these are Sushir Vadya. And then comes Anadhya Vadya, or percussions. So Mridanga, Dhol, and Duggi provide rhythmic foundations, and this can be categorized as Anadhya Vadya. Next. So also we got a very clear picture of the ahadya, the costume ornamentation and the hairstyles from these sculptures. These sculptures show very, very intricate dressing styles and ornaments, like even in a costume where we have self work on the costume, even that can be visible in these sculptures. So these are so much detailed. So here we find women wearing mostly mekhla, sari, or kanchi vesha, that is dhoti style drape. and the flowing pleats indicate movement and action. So I have said this before also. And then there are many kinds of ornaments worn by the sculptures, even male and the female sculptures that we find. And there's a long list of ornamentation. Like most, what I noticed, what really struck me was the kotibandha or the waist belts. It was so intricate in most of those sculptures. So next. Yeah. So in the ears also, most sculptures show long kundals or the karna chulika on big huge earrings, roundish earrings. And then like I said, kamar bandhani is a major part. Rings and floral ornaments were also common. Remember the Devdasi sculpture that I showed? It had a huge floral garland over on her neck. And there are many kinds of hairstyles, as you can see. There are four turrets in the temple on the four sides, and mm, below one or two turrets I have seen a whole wall of this second sculpture, the second picture of the sculpture, that you can see someone standing in pushpa puta. And then the whole wall had only this sculpture with different kinds of hairstyles. Just the hairstyles were different. The rest, the all the sculptures were almost similar, only the hairstyles were different. One was a simple braid, one was a bun under braid, one was three braids. So like this. Also here also you can see in my picture I have shown the kanchi vesha, which is the pleated form of the costume with the kamar bandhani and the ghungur in the leg. And then you can see the Deva Mahal bun that is shown by in my picture also, and the same bun done in the sculpture also, where the bun is done right over the head like this. And then there are many kinds of buns actually in the sculptures. And then you can also see a Srikol player. This is a male player. And then you can see with the braid and gopucha hairstyle. The gopucha hairstyle, as you can see, is just a braid and a small bun kind of a formation at the end of it. Next. So there are, as I said, there are other religious influences on Gaudiya Nritya. So Gaudiya Nritya has three religious influences: most the Shaivite, the Shakti, and the Vaishnavism. And within all these three sculptures of all these three can be found in the Pancharatna Shamrai temple. Although predominantly it is a Vaishnavism oriented temple. But in the Shakti sector, you can find sculptures of like Durga, then Chinnamasta. I'm going left to right, Kali, and then you can also see Ganesha, Kartik. You can see it's a Kartik because there's a peacock present, and also the Ganesha has a rat present, and then Nandi with the Uma Maheshwar, with the Nandi, and next. So I come to almost the end of the series of my slides, and the limitations I would point out that it's a huge cost, and it is very hard to preserve this kind of temple, because weathering, erosion, and other biological factors have damaged these terracotta sculptures. Making detailed analysis is quite difficult, and most are not well kept. Most of these temples are on a verge of erosion, they're weathering, I would say, and they are not well kept at all. Even if one tries to bar entry of tourists in these temples, the time will always ruin such intricate work. And also you cannot protect it, you cannot cover it up, and you cannot let it out open. So both are harmful. So there's nothing to be done actually. There was a newspaper report also on this, that you cannot do anything about it unless you create a whole dome and build a miniature environment. You can't protect it. So the accessibility has been restricted by ASI. But the problem of restriction is also that the tourist won't get to see what the sculptures inside the temples are, or how good they are, because all they can see from outside isn't really the bigger picture lies inside the temples, which we cannot allow access of the tourist, but also if we don't allow access to the tourist, it would be left untouched. So that's another issue. So, and interpretation was a big limitation for me, because a a person playing a conch can be interpreted in one way by me, interpreted in another way by another scholar. So this will always come in between the studies, because you cannot everyone cannot interpret a sculpture similarly. Like some will say this is Shiva, some will say this is another form of Shiva, because these are all so closely related. So you cannot really make out always what is which. So that's a problem. And I would like to conclude by saying the terracotta temples of Bishnupur, particularly the Shamrai temple, stands as enduring testaments to Bengal's rich cultural and devotional past. Through sculptural narratives, these preserve the aesthetic roots of Gaudiya Nritya, bridging the static art and living traditions. Like I said, this study highlights how temple architecture, religious motifs, and artistic expressions together sustain and inspire Bengal's classical dance heritage across centuries. Next, I would like to extend my thanks. Thanks would be less. So, so I would like to thank Dr. Muhua Mukherjee, my guru, my mentor. So we can also call her the mother of Gaudiya Nritya, for guiding me and enlightening me everything. You can say, to make myself able even to deliver such a presentation on Gaudiya Nritya, which I really believe I don't know much of it still. So, and I would like to extend my thanks to Shubha Mojumdar of ASI Kolkata, Archaeological Survey of India. Sir had helped us a lot in getting permits to access the temples, because it is not accessible for the outside tourists. And I would like to extend my thanks to National Library Kolkata, to Shomo Bhomik, Noirit Dattagupta, Soumitra Vaidya, Kaushik Shaw, Sanjay Haldar, Moidul Islam Khan, Shahid Low, and Deepak Barwi. And of course, my parents who went with me for the trip, and my dad, Ashim Dattagupta, he clicked the pictures of me in the temple. And these are my references for the study. You can ask me anything. If I know the answer, I would definitely try to answer it.